Oh, okay, great.
Here we go. Shervan, take it away. ETH-Hooks v4.
All right, hey guys. So I'm going to talk about ETH-Hooks v4. Basically, I've been working on it since December, and I got some feedback on v3. So it's mostly based on how to make it easier for us and to reduce some of the pain points. So to focus in just an overview, for the principles of v4, like I just wanted to focus on a couple of things. The first is flexibility. So I know we have a lot of issues with hitting the RPCs too much, things like that, especially when people are learning. So I wanted to help have more flexibility for the hooks to update. Basically, choose your update, polling, or every block number, or like every 10 blocks, or whatever you want. So some flexibility on that. The second is the ease of use with context, and I'll go through examples more. So Ether's app context was reduced in v3. And the reason I wanted to do that was just to make it easier for people to understand that they don't have to pass around provider, and easier for new people to use it. And I do know that context is something new for somebody new to our space to learn with React. But the way that I want to show a way I've done it, and it's actually very easy. They don't even have to know how context works in React to actually use Ether's app context. And then what's new in v4 is context for contracts. So I'm going to be going through that as well. And it's the same thing to be able to access your contract easily anywhere in your app. The third one is, this is from feedback from v3. So compatibility for different ways of passing in Ether's provider. So now we have context, but there has to be different ways for people to pass in provider if they need to, or use a secondary provider. And these are all things that came up in multiple projects. Bliss brought this up for some of the products he had to work for in Moonshot. So I was looking into that. And the fourth one is, and again, about the RPC calls. So really have some kind of caching layer. I noticed a lot of projects were using Redux or some other ways to cache data, but I found it easier, much better way to use it. I'm using React Query under the hood to cache any RPC calls, so that we're not, you can use the hooks anywhere in your app, and you don't have to worry about optimizing anything. It'll automatically get data from the cache layer and doesn't make extra network calls. And the fifth one is type contracts. It basically make it easier for noobs and anyone writing secure contracts not to make mistakes. So you don't call something the DAI contract can't do. You don't pass in parameters it can't do. And that's the whole reason for working with typed contracts. So that's the principles behind ETH-Hooks 4. For stats, I just want to give some stats. So E3 downloads are actually, weekly downloads are actually the same level as V2. So V2 is about 650 downloads a week, and V3 is about 500 downloads a week. And so people are using context right now. The JS version only uses V2. So that's something to keep in mind. So the people are using the TypeScript version and V3, which is surprising because not a lot of people ask me questions. So I guess it works. I have no idea. So there's that. So as an overview, ETH-Hooks v4, there is a ETH components v3 that's updated to match v4. And the TypeScript repo has been completely updated to work with ETH-Hooks v4 and ETH components v3. So I'm going to go into some of these things. So the first one is the provider. So right now, the new way that was introduced in v3 was the Ether's context. So there's an app-wide context, and how it works is.
And when you say Ether's context, it's not actually Ether's JS, right? It's our own context that holds like read contract and write contract. Say that again?
No, it's built on Ethers.
Oh, okay.
It's built on top of Ethers. That's what we use in Scaffolded anyways.
Okay, so this would be like a context that Rikmu has set up within Ethers JS?
No. It's a context that's here. Let me show you.
Okay.
So basically, how it works is that we have a context in ETH-Hooks. It uses Ethers under the hood. So if you want to use it, all you have to do is wrap your main app with this. You don't have to set anything up. You don't have to do anything. And what that gives you is anywhere in your app, you can call use Ether's context, and you get access to the provider, the signer, the account, everything you need.
The price,
to actually
all that
function.
stuff. Cool.
Exactly.
Okay.
So and then this is what all the hooks use as well. So you have access to the current context, and you have access to the hooks. So, and going back, so that is what Ether's context is. So I just wanted to iterate that the complexity is kind of hidden. They don't have to know how context works. They just have to wrap their app in it. So if we look at something more complicated like Scaffold, like there's different contexts in Scaffold, like Apollo and many other things, right? But for us in our app, it's just like, it's just imported and wrapped, and that's it. Right. And the theme
and the user can be like at their homepage or whatever, and they could use like the spread operator or whatever that is, and they can say, price and read contracts equal the context, and squiggly braces around it, and it's loaded up. Yeah.
No, if you want to get price, you have to use the price hook.
Right? Oh, okay.
Right. So for example, like there's one for use. I think there's one for use ETH price.
There it is. DEX, ETH price.
Yeah. So, or there's something like if you want to use balance, you don't have to pass in. But that was the V3 way. So after some feedback, I also have another option. The library that we use called Web3 React also allows you to have multiple contexts. So the big use for this is, say you're on Polygon and you need the ENS from mainnet. So you would create a static RPC client and then pass that. So that would be your secondary context, and there's a key to it, and then you can use that anywhere. So now V4 supports that as well. So this really like kind of helps with prop drilling, and usually most apps have one main context and some static contexts. Sorry, one main provider and static providers. It's like mainnet and BSC or whatever they're using right now. And that's the reason for this. It's to cover like the 80% case in this general way. And there's another way to override this as well. So for this, I just wanted to like ping out Jason, because he was mentioning to me that he had some problems with the vanilla JavaScript and prop drilling. So
I can see this being very handy, trying to get updated hooks version into the JavaScript scaffold.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, right now we're in JavaScript. We have to pass down the providers into all the components,
right,
and so on. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
And a lot of this, I feel like I see what you're presenting and I get it, but like for me to be able to really know it and feel it, I basically just have to build something with this to be able to say, oh, I get it. This is how it works. Yeah.
So we're going to be doing a speed run on Monday.
Sounds great.
And we can do both, and we'll both JavaScript and TypeScript, and we'll figure it out. The last one is for other people who need to use this and they have their own use cases. So there's an override mechanism. So you can pass in a provider just like you do in ETH-Hooks v2. So I'm just going to go to that example. So this is to provide people compatibility, right? So for example, I have two things here. One is use balance, and this one does not need, this one's using the context. So you just pass in the account, you don't have to worry about anything else, right? And it automatically knows you're signed into mainnet and gets your context, gets your balance for mainnet. Or if you're signed into, say, for example, in this example, you've signed into Polygon and it'll get your balance from Polygon. But say you want to pass in your own provider. So what you're doing is like you passing in the mainnet provider and getting, this exists in some form in V2 as well. You're getting an adapter, which is like this composite object that has the signer, provider, chain ID, and I think address, right? And so you pass that into the use balance hook, the same hook. So you pass in the account, and then you say, I want to enable the override. So adapter enabled, and then I want to pass in my own adapter. So that way you can do it the old way. But this complexity is hidden from new users. So someone who specifically wants to pass in a provider will be using this. So this is mostly for people who want to do something more complex or something easier. So the idea is to hide as much complexity from noobs as possible, but give also opportunity for other people to do whatever they want and have more flexibility.
So for this one, say I'm building a project on Polygon, I would want to use a Polygon provider and inject it here for my mainnet balance.
Actually, you can, if you want to get the mainnet balance, yes. If you want to get your Polygon balances, the user is already signed into Polygon, so you don't have to provide anything. You just have to do it the way I did it in this line right here. So you don't have to pass in any provider.
Cool.
It automatically gets it from the context.
Gotcha.
I would say from a user standpoint, from a builder's standpoint, when they get started with this stuff, it'd be really awesome if there's just like 2 or 3 examples in line where it's like, here's the, the typical use case and it's uncommented and it's obvious, but then, right above it or right below it are like 3 or 4 lines that are commented out that are like, all right, here's like a couple weird things you can do with this. Like, here's a couple copy paste, like, just templates of how you might go about doing some weirder, more complex stuff. So just like kind of hitting on that, it'd be great if we could have kind of in line with the comments, some examples of how to use it.
Yeah. So there is, I'm going to work with Jason with this, but in the TypeScript version, there is like a hook called scaffolded examples. And literally, this is just a bunch of comments and different ways of doing things, like exactly like you said. So I have like tons of comments. This is how you do this. This is how you do this. So we can replicate this and put that into scaffolded. So that's not in the main page, but the user can just go into this hook and find out all the examples that they can use. So it's easy for us to direct them to it. And going back, I wish it didn't reset me. So that's the first one. So this is just to give people flexibility on what provider they're going to use and ease of use. If they don't want to worry about it, they just sign in using the Web3 modal and they just logged in as it's kind of like the old Web2 stuff, right? You log in and you're logged in. So the secondary thing, this is one of the big things I was thinking about when I was making ETH-Hooks before. It's that there's a cache now. It's part of Ethers. So as long as you add that Ethers context around your main app, you'll get this. And this will prevent any repeated calls to the network. So you don't need to pass in any variables. Say you at some part of your app, for example, in your main page, you need like the balance. And then you need the balance again in the examples page, or you need the balance again in like some other page that's deep in your app. You don't need to, you can just use the hook now. You don't need to worry about it making repeated calls to the network. It's just simple, like the user doesn't have to worry about it. It automatically hits the cache and then it will use the cached value. It won't make a network request. I think that's a really big deal for us. Like it makes it easy for us to use hook and not have to worry about this mental overload of hitting the network too much. When there's a network change, say for example, the network has changed, the signer has changed, it automatically invalidates the cache so that you're not getting the wrong values. So all of that is built in using React Query and built into Ethers context. So that's one of the big changes in V4. Yeah, I'm hoping to see people use it and see how it is.
Well, it should just work, right? People using it, they won't even know, right? That'll be the best part about it. It'll just be more performant. Yeah.
Fast RPC calls.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think some people like Adam noticed. So, like he always bugs me when like things hit the network too much. So I'm like, okay, I gotta figure out a better way of doing this. And before it felt like whack-a-mole, like, oh, this hook was being called too much. There's too much use of fact. There's something happening all the time. Like, fuck, how do I prevent this? So the last part is updates. So this is another big piece. In the past, we had this on-block polling in V2, but it was very complicated. Each hook had this like complicated way of polling. So I made everything into, everything is hidden from the user now. So there's an option that you can pass into the hook. These are, again, you don't have to worry about it. If you don't care, it'll just update every block. But if you want to manipulate that, you can change that. So all hooks have these options, and you can pass in if you want. Default is updating every block. You can also set it to update every 100 blocks. You can tell it to update every 1,000 blocks. You can tell it to update every 10 blocks. So Bliss was saying that this would be really useful in Polygon because they have block time of 1 second or something like that. The other option is polling. I took it out in V3, but I added it back in V4, but it's a better way of doing it now. So you can poll. The minimum polling time is 10 seconds because I don't want somebody to accidentally spam the network, but you can set whatever polling time you want. The thing is that if you set up polling, it'll disable the update on block. So you have to pick one. There are other options as well. You can tell the hooks to automatically refresh when the window is focused on. So the user starts using the site again, and it was in the background or something. You can tell it to refresh on mount. You can also tell it the data is going to be stale in 30 seconds, update the maximum time you can wait is 30 seconds. So there's all these other options that you can add in, and it's all part of the options variable. And it's only exposed to users if they actually want to dig in and do these things. This also ties into the third one. And this is something is about hook return. So right now the signature of the hook is returned. So before the on block was just, you get the block number, right? Or the balance, you get the balance number. Now it's kind of like use state. You get an array, that's this tuple of result and updater. So you can manually tell the hook to update, which is this, or you can tell the hook to, or you just get the result. So you can manually update in any part of your app. How this works is that, if I go back into this, so see here, this use balance is in an array now. It used to be that the use balance is like this, right? So this is actually, what that means is that it's kind of like use state. So you have an updater. So the update is updater is a function that you can call in your app to force your hook to update. And this is something that Bliss and some other people asked me for. So I've added that into the system.
So it's is it a set function, or is it a function you call to trigger it, or how does that?
It's a function you call to trigger it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just call updater or whatever, and something else happens. It's not like I have to set it and send it a value. Make sure I understand it correctly.
Okay. You don't have to send it a value.
It's just something you trigger. Okay. That triggers everything to happen. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there were some use cases for this in Moonshot. So that's one of the reasons why I added it. And then there's some possible upgrades to this that I'm going to talk to Bliss about later. But we wanted to get this version out.
One thing I wanted to point out, sorry to cut you off, but one thing I wanted to point out in this case is if you can use one hook to manage multiple address, let's say, for example, the use balance one, and you want to have access to the balance of multiple addresses and utilize that in some case. Maybe you can use the updater and pass in like an extra address, and your local balance object updates with like that address and its balance. So you could just call your local balance, pass in the address or the ENS name or something, and then it gets you the balance for that particular address. But it's still something that we're discussing a lot more, and Shravan has done a great job at it. So that's good.
Thanks. Yeah, it's something we will add as an update to V4 as a minor update, because it's not going to change the signature. But basically, we have to figure out which hooks actually need this and then do it on a case-by-case basis, kind of. So we're going to do that later. The next part, so that's the hook return. The last part, and then I'll do a quick demo and then go over what's done and what needs to be done, is the contract context. So there is a contract context. There's 3 ways of getting contracts. You can get the hard hat contracts. You can automatically get external verified contracts. So for example, you want to load DAI, you don't need to have the DAI API in your project. You just give it the address and give it the name of the contract, and it'll get the contract for you. And then you can also load contracts from API for unverified contracts. The context automatically types this, and then you can access that via a hook anywhere in your app. So for this, I need to actually show you the code. So I'm going to go to the TypeScript version. So how this is set up is that the flow is slightly different. So right now, I have a configuration. And in the configuration, what I have is like, this is the simple TypeScript version, right? So there's your contract, that's a hard hat contract. There's die, and then there's uni. So this is a hard hat contract, so it has a special function to call it. This is external contract. So there is a file called external contract config, and I'm telling it that in mainnet, there's a contract called die, and then this address, and I want you to get the API and the contract from it, so we don't have to store this. And it's using ETH SDK under the hood.
Etherscan, where is it getting it from?
It's getting it from Etherscan or source file. Depends.
Ethers
it's using
cool.
No, ETH SDK does it. This is a guy who developed type. Yeah, the guy who developed type chain is the one who did this project as well. It's been out for a few years actually. So this
the
is
Death Crypto guy, right?
Yeah, that's right.
What a beast! What a beast! Yeah. Shout out to Death Crypto, whoever he is. Some anon.
Exactly.
Love it.
And then this is an example of loading just an external API, and you can do that as well. So how this works now is that I just deleted. I'm going to clear all my contracts, and what I do now is now I run yarn contract build. So it's gonna, contracts. So it's gonna build all my hard hat contracts and put the types into the app. It's gonna get all the external contracts and create types for them. And then we can do a yarn deploy. So see here, it's getting the APIs for Etherscan, die and uni and so on and so forth. So now I'm gonna split the terminal. And then I'm going to do yarn deploy as usual. Or maybe I have to wait for the. Okay, it's done. So what that means is that, okay, so now I've created this configuration. I've loaded the data. It automatically has done this. And then anywhere in the app, so anywhere in the app right now, I have these. This is all part of the Ethers contract. Ethers context. This one loads all the loads the app contracts. This one tells it that connect to the apps, connect the contracts to the mainnet, and connect the contract to the current Ethers context. So now I can get a use app contract, and then I can just pass in your contract, and I get a fully typed your contract. So you guys are kind of familiar with this, like your contract.
And that's across providers, which is kind of interesting. Like that list that you had to select was there's two that are on mainnet and one that's local, and you're selecting the one, and it's going to know what to do.
Well, you have to pass in the chain ID. So right now I'm going to pass in the Ethers context chain ID. So I'm saying that I want your contract for this chain ID. So this I just declared it twice. I'm just going to do this. So this your contract, you can call purpose. So it has purpose in it. No one can make a mistake. It knows exactly what purpose is. It knows exactly what set purpose is. Like it knows that set purpose only takes a string. So if you're a noob, or even if you're an experienced programmer and you're developing like a production app, you're not going to make a mistake because it's going to catch it in compile time. So it knows that you can't pass in like a number to this or something like that. So something more complicated is die, right? So I'm going to do const die contract equals use app contracts. This is also typed. You can only get you can only pass in the contracts that you're defined. And I'm going to say I want this from mainnet. So networks mainnet dot chain ID. So const. So now die wait, I spelled const wrong. Die contract has all these things that are only specific to DAI, like allowance, balance off, because that's a ERC20 token, some generic stuff that all contracts have, like estimate gas and stuff. That's all part of ethers. But you can mint for DAI. So only things that are specific to this contract is given to you. So you can do this for NFTs, so ERC 720 tokens, whatever. So it just makes it super easy if you're using TypeScript. And even if you're not using TypeScript, you'll get autocomplete, you know, even though it doesn't check your types, for people who are learning this and for people who are making production apps and they want to catch issues in compile time. And basically, the things that are needed to use this is this configuration file, and then the external contracts list, and go away, Wakatan. And then that's it. So, and then you have to set up your contracts here in your main app. So you just load the contracts, connect the hooks, and connect the app contracts. So, so again, there's an advantage to this. So it also uses the cache. So you're not going to make repeated calls to the network. If you call purpose 200 times, it's going to like just get it from the cache, unless you actually tell it invalidate or you have an update schedule for it. And you can use it anywhere in your app. You don't have to pass around anything. You don't have to pass around your write contracts. You don't have to pass around your read contracts. You don't have to do anything. So V4 still has use contract loader, still has the use contract reader untyped, the older version. But if you want to use a use contract reader, there's a new one. So use contract reader. So this is the cool thing about typing. So I have this use contract reader, right? I passed in your contract, and I have to pass in the thing I wanted to call, the function I want to call in that contract. And this is automatically typed properly. It's typed as a string, and there's an update function. So if you do this, you have purpose and update. So you can actually tell it to say like, you know that the contract has been changed, and you can tell it to go update manually, if that makes sense. Is it? You have a manual update function. The other advantage is that I see here that I'm passing in the filter for the event. So use contract reader can be updated on block or every 10th block, or with polling, or you can tell it to update only when it gets an event that the contract has changed. So that's another improvement there, where you can actually tell it to update the app, update all the values in app, and the contract actually has an event happen. So you don't make a billion calls to the network. Do you guys have any questions?
It's awesome. I feel like, again, like the complexity is, it looks like there's a lot abstracted away. It looks like that there's going to be some complexities here. It looks like it's going to work really well. Like I think this is the right way to go, and it looks good. Like I don't have any like red flags. It just comes down to, I just want to get my hands dirty and build something with it. And it sounds like we'll do that Monday. So I feel like this has been a good intro, but let's kick it down the road to Monday and like build some stuff with it. And that's when I can really give feedback and figure out how it feels.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to pair with Jason to update the scaffolded vanilla app. So I'll just like pair program with him. He can do the JavaScript dirty work, and I can just. So
I would love to see that. If you guys need more, let us know.
Drive.
Good, good. Let me know if we need more help there. That's awesome. I'd love to see.
Yeah, that would be great. I'm gonna do once it's like the documentations are better, I'm going to actually reach out to people and the Build Guild channel and Scaffolded channel and just do introductions to people, or maybe make a recording and stuff like that. So just as a last part for updates, what's done? So ETH-Hooks 4 is feature complete. It's in Scaffolded TypeScript. It's already deployed. It works. I've checked it with the basic apps. My next step is to try some of the challenges or update some of the challenges that Mark has been working on, or help him update it. So to do it, and also like teach other people how this works. It's V3 of ETH components has been updated to use this already. There are unit tests for ETH-Hooks, and they've been updated. So right now we have 24 tests, but it's not full coverage. But it is more professional now. It's like more dependable because they are unit tests, so people can actually start trusting this for production environment rather than just believing that we didn't we are doing a good job, I guess. So there's tests.
It'll be great to have like an external non-scaffold ETH library or build or template or something using this also to show that like we've ejected all this cool stuff out of scaffold ETH and you can use it in any app you want. You don't even have to use scaffold ETH to get a lot of this value.
I think there is,
cool,
but I don't know how to find them because the NPM usage doesn't match up to what scaffold ETH downloads are. So I have no idea how to track these people down, but it would be nice to get feedback on how people use this and what they have found, the pain points and the good points. To do is, I need to update the documentation. I've started already. There is a document, there is a website for the documentation. So this is in GitHub. I don't know if you guys can see it, but this is kind of like the document in progress for V4, but it was complete for V3. But it tells you how Ether's contacts work, how to use it. It has full documentation on all the signatures and stuff. So everything here is actually written in Markdown in each of these hooks. See, there's an explanation for how the hook works. Everything is fully documented, but for V3 and V4, I'm updating this. So
and how to use it too? Is there like an example? It'd be nice to have some examples here. Just like a little, what Rickmu does is he has a little cookbook. Have a little cookbook here of like, here's how you do this, here's how you do that. That would be an awesome
that's what I
little
want to
thing to
work
have
on,
in there.
actually.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. That'd be great.
Docs. Yeah. I think I might need some help with that too. So if you know people who are good at docs, I can like help them.
I think we actually have a couple folks coming in that are like technical writers too. Sean's a good one too. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. I got a dip. Awesome work, Shravan. I look forward to Monday. We'll do like an actual, let's get our hands dirty and build with this. But this has been an awesome introduction into ETH-Hooks v4. And I'll probably just throw it up on YouTube for anybody searching ETH-Hooks v4 so they find this intro. But thank you very much. Thanks everybody here.
Nice, Shravan.
All right. I'm